sir.
All right, I found my board. Look at this. It's a digital version of the board, the familiar Biz Doc board. And let's dive in. We talked about Uber. Uber made an announcement this week that they were finally profitable. Fantastic. Well, let's walk through that. I want to show you how they became profitable, because it's been 14 years we've been all watching Uber and the trials and tribulations and competing with Lyft and Uber Eats and Uber Freight and what's going on. And we had that Travis Kalanick was one of the founders. Garrett Camp was the other. Kalanick, board and investors, big problems. New CEO there. Let's walk through really, really quick so that we can get into how did they become profitable. So first of all, we have now a new CEO. And the new CEO that's been there for, actually I shouldn't say new CEO, he's been there a few years now. This is Dara. And he announced that, well, we are finally cash flow positive, but we're also generating free cash flow. It was over $1 billion of free cash flow generated in a quarter. All of that is great news for Uber that has been living life historically with a ton of losses. For those of you that maybe didn't see the early case studies, and Kelly's gonna put the links to my earlier Biz Doc case studies in the comment section, so you can go check those out. So, Uber was founded in 2009. That's right, it's been 15 freaking years. Can you believe that? Since it was founded, we've been using it. And this is, let me get out of the way here. Total funding, $25 billion from venture capital, most notably Benchmark Capital. And there is a Showtime special called Super Pumped that also portrayed Bill Gurley, one of the early investors, and everything he went through supporting the company and then managing the transition from Travis Kalanick, who was the CEO at that time. Then the IPO. The IPO was May 2019, so only about 4 years ago, 4 years and a couple months. They raised $8 billion that day at a valuation of $82 billion. So let's keep those numbers in mind as we step through and see where they are today. So we start here, and you can see right there, that was the $82 billion, and you see they went through a big spike here, and then we go on a roller coaster ride, and all of a sudden, see there at the end, they're back up to a market cap of $92.9 billion. Hey, that's great. So that means there's been a little bit of a comeback, and the comeback loves a good story. And that's what we're about to hear about. So you can see they had the big spike in the middle, and we'll be able to tell what that's all about in a second. But finally, if you just take a look at Tale of Two Cities, you look where the party started right here and where the party is right here. And I'll stand in the middle and point out those two data points aren't really that far apart on that chart. So $92 billion, but it's a much healthier, bigger, stronger valuation today than it was at the IPO. So let's go take a look. This is total revenue for Uber. And you can see starts all the way down here, $3.84 billion in 16, 8 in 17, 11.27, and then 14. Now let's take a look. Let me hide these big bars, don't look here, and just look here. Look at that. What a nice progression that is. They went public right here. So you see that? That's all people could see. They couldn't see these bars, you know, all this other stuff at that time. So you can see everybody's like, wow, look at Uber, look at it's going. Boy, they're gonna go public. Boy, and look at that growth. Well, guess what? That was a very true story. And they go public May of this year, right there. And then what happens? Well, then what happens is May of 2019, 2020, we have COVID. So we're told to be home and wear a mask and don't go anywhere. And guess what? So we didn't take an Uber anywhere. And then we suddenly come back. But coming back, there's coming back. But look at 2022, $31 billion in revenue, up from 17. That's a big bounce back in growth. Well, now you kind of see maybe the growth was helping fueling the finally running to profitability. Well, net losses. Now these bars go the other way. Every bar that goes down is a loss. So you can see they started out with some losses, they go public, a big loss in 2020, partially led to no revenue from people being driven around, and they also sold some business units that weren't very, very profitable, kind of on a stock swap, one of them was for $4 billion, but also meant they didn't have to have the loss from that business anymore. And finally, 2022, $9 billion loss fueling the growth. But suddenly in 2023, we get free cash flow, and operating profit. So now you can see what was happening here. You had that big jump up, and then you had COVID driving it down, and now a comeback with far more discipline. Now this chart makes a little more sense, doesn't it? Okay, let's look at segment revenue. This I really, really like. You take a look at the black line here, that's Uber. When we come out of COVID, whoosh, heading up. Uber Eats during COVID comes up and it flattens out after COVID. Why? Because Uber Eats was delivering stuff to us after COVID like all the time. And now the growth isn't nearly as dramatic, but it's still growing because we can go to the restaurants ourselves now. We don't have to sit out there in one of those parking spaces that says pick up parking spaces, please wait here. Where we're actually going in to sit down and dine. And then at the bottom, take a look at that. Nobody talks about this because on the consumer side, we don't hear about it much. That's Uber Freight. And if you look over here, Freight eats Uber. That's not a sentence, but see that? So now there are 3 business units in Uber, each generating more than $6 billion. As a matter of fact, regular Uber generates over twice that, at $14 billion. There you have it, and you see what's going on here, a lot of discipline. We move from the segment revenue onto Uber Eats. Now I want to show you something here. I love this chart. This is a 19, 20, 21, 22, so that you can see what's happening to the losses. Look at the revenue Uber Eats is generating, and look how the loss goes down, up, goes over here. I should really have this one here in green. Now they're making a profit. Uber Eats is actually making, not maybe into a full profit, but positive EBITDA. So Uber Eats is not dragging it down. And, oh, Uber Freight, zero. $7 billion in revenue and zero EBITDA, which also means zero negative. So now Freight is doing well. Get it? You see what's going on here? So what did Uber do, and what's the lesson for you and me? How did they get here? Well, they started focusing on their core, Uber plus Eats plus Freight. And the 3 business, again, each over $6 billion in revenue. Then they restructured the core business. They announced layoffs earlier this year in 2023, just like everybody else did, but not as many as other tech companies. They only laid off about 3-4%, I believe it was. But Dara, the CEO, was pushing hard on restructuring, and also he divested businesses that didn't work. Specifically, they sold for about a $4 billion stock swap, a division that just wasn't working. And so that allows you pick up $4 billion of somebody else's stock that could be valued for another day, but any losses on that business are no longer hitting your financial statements. Then, lastly, strong performance. In the last earnings report where they announced this wonderful operating profit, 74% of rideshare. Now, how are they going to keep growing from that? Interesting. If you already have 74%, you're really whooping up on Lyft, and there's only so much additional whooping you're going to be able to do in the market. But nonetheless, you grew 26% in a quarter through Freight, through Eats, and Uber. So Uber is coming up to, I think, to more of a flattening of the growth curve because more of us can use it, but they already have 74% of the ride share right now. That's pretty amazing. So you can see what happened. And when you put all these things together, guess what you get? Operating profit. And putting that together with $1 billion of free cash flow in the quarter, Uber, after 14 years under new management, new CEO, who has been driving this for about 4 years now, I think give or take, Dara's been CEO, and here we are. And that, my friend, is a quick recap of how Uber, in the most recent incarnation, got itself to operating cash flow. I want to take you over real quick. Want to learn more? Look at the first case study, part 1, the original case study. Kellyanne's going to put the link here in the comments. Then case study part 2, there's Travis Kalanick in Better Days when he was running Uber. And then there, right here, that is the logo for Super Pump that you can find on Showtime. We don't make an affiliate fee or anything. I'm just commenting that that was a good dramatized documentary, kind of drama based on the trials and tribulations and the birth and the growth of Uber and what led to the exit of the CEO, where Dara has come in and is driving the company very, very well. That is the Uber case study, and we are glad to bring this to you. And I appreciate the fact that we now have the digital board. So Biz Doc case studies are back, now on the digital board. Let's get back and wrap it up. Boy, I love that. I love doing the case studies because I love bringing information to you that I hope you can use for your company. And the story of Uber, and I hope those links to my earlier case studies and to that Showtime series gives you the full story. It's a great way to just look at it and say, it's something big and public and complicated, yet I can find things for my company. And speaking of finding things for your company, we have the Vault Conference coming up, brought to you by Patrick Bet-David and Valuetainment down in Hollywood, Florida, which is right around the corner from the Fort Lauderdale Airport, basically greater Fort Lauderdale, at the Diplomat Hotel out on the beach. And what will be there is a series of leaders and Patrick doing trainings, educations, case studies, all kinds of things where you can learn and apply things for your company. If you're not planning to be there, think about it. You can go to valuetainment.com website, or Kellyanne, what is the website for the Vault?
TheVaultConference.com.
TheVaultConference.com. And you see these people here. Behind me, you see Tom Brady, you see Mike Tyson, Will Guidara. Tom Brady will be there talking about how to win championships with different mix of players. Players leave, players come in. Hey, that's like you and me, where we lose an employee and have to hire a new key employee. Mike Tyson going to talk about strategy before getting into a fight. They should be entertaining speakers for you, but also give you mindset tips that will be very helpful to you running your business. The Vault Conference, please be there. Love to see you there. And until next time, from the Biz Doc Podcast, I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, saying, I hope I left you better than I found you.